The Astro City Mini released a few weeks ago in Japan, and I've been playing it pretty much non-stop ever since it arrived. To give you guys my thoughts on the device, the Astro City Mini is a pretty unique in the new era of plug-and-play consoles, as it's actually a scaled-down Astro City Mini arcade cabinet designed to be fully functional without actually having to plug it in to a TV. But it also retails for $140, which would make it almost double the price of the Sega Genesis Mini released last year. Is the idea of having an all-in-one miniature arcade worth the higher price of entry? Let's start the review by talking about the hardware on the device. I'll admit that one of the reasons I got the Astro City Mini was because I was a huge fan of Sega's candy cabinet designs since I was a kid. I would browse magazines being jealous of these really uniform design cabinets that were exclusive to Japan. So when SEGA Toys announced the Mini, I jumped on board thinking it would be a cool toy to own. I really wasn't expecting the unit to actually deliver such impressive hardware in such a mini package. The first thing that impressed me was the screen quality on the LCD used for the device. The picture is bright, vibrant, and even has impressive viewing angles. For the most part, playing games on the small built-in screen isn't an issue until you notice one glaring flaw. In the original Astro City arcade cabinet, Sega used a 4x3 display for the screen. Since LCDs that support 4x3 are rarer to find, Sega opted out for a 16x9 widescreen LCD panel. Since all the games included on the device obviously don't use widescreen aspect ratio, this means that by Sega putting a 16x9 panel, it actually takes precious screen real estate away from titles. For most of the built-in 37 games that are included, the reduction in screen size isn't that big of an issue, but for games like Crackdown, Game Ground, and Scramble Spirits, these really suffer. This could be a huge letdown for fans who wanted to primarily use the built-in screen for their playtime. Sega continues to deliver in hardware quality in terms of how the miniature arcade stick and buttons feel. Just by seeing the size of the buttons and stick, you can tell that Sega tried to make them as big as they possibly could on this unit. And it does make a big difference. Even with my huge American beef hands, I had no issue playing some of my arcade favorites such as Golden Axe and Virtua Fighter. That isn't to say it isn't cramped, it is, but the games are definitely playable. The front-facing buttons and arcade stick on the Astro City Mini do a great job of recreating the clicky, satisfying arcade feel you would expect from a full-size arcade cabinet. I personally own a PlayStation 4 fighting stick with Sanyo parts, and this small unit does a good job of having a similar feel to my arcade stick. This is a huge win for the unit since most arcade sticks alone cost more than the whole unit. The fact that Sega got the controls to feel so satisfying is a big accomplishment for the team behind the device. Astro City Mini also has its own built-in speakers that actually have a pretty decent punchy sound that I didn't expect. Usually when companies skimp on anything, it's the sound quality. Thus, I didn't go in thinking the built-in speakers would be any good. I would say that the speakers on this device are a little too loud, and that the device should really have had a hardware volume button on the unit to give users greater control over the sound. Kind of weird that Sega tied all the volume option buttons within the software menu of the device, since this is sorta sold as an office desk toy. Imagine trying to be sneaky at work, booting up your Astro City Mini, and then this menu theme starts blaring in your office. Of course, you can always turn off the volume within the device's settings and have no sound every time you boot the device. But I'm personally thankful that Sega included an auxiliary cord input, which allows me to connect it to my speakers where I could manually control the volume myself. While playing on the small screen and trying to beat Fantasy Zone with one quarter is cool, sometimes you want to play on the big screen, and thankfully the Astro City Mini supports Hdmi Out with a maximum output of 720p. While the main menu on the unit does have a soft image on my TV, that seems to be pretty normal for 720p content. I honestly thought that the Astro City Mini displayed all games with a clear picture, and it makes sense considering all the games on the device had a resolution of sub 480p. Well, it might be cool to aim for 1080p output. I don't think the device suffers by limiting itself to 720p. I'm obviously glad that Sega added a HDMI out, and this is one of the main selling features for a lot of people. and I think it works as intended. I personally have no issues with the picture quality being displayed on the TV. The device is powered by a micro USB cable, which is something I had an issue with on my first Astro City Mini unit, as the micro USB port stopped working after unplugging the device. As it seemed that my micro USB port was defective, I would have to put pressure on the back to try to get power on the unit. It doesn't seem like this is a widespread issue since I'm the only person on the internet that I've seen reporting this problem. Thankfully, Amazon Japan replaced the Astro City Mini for free, and I haven't had an issue with the replacement unit. I've never had to return an imported Japanese product in my life, and I was surprised that Amazon Japan has the same return process as Amazon USA. So I totally recommend importing on Amazon Japan since returns are free, fast, and gives you peace of mind. The Astro City Mini does come with a micro USB cable, but it doesn't come with a wall adapter, which is a bummer. As far as wall adapters, I've heard mixed opinions on the device, either needing a SEGA recommended 5 voltage 2 amp adapter, but I've also heard people saying that you can use modern phone chargers as it has a voltage controller on the unit, meaning it won't overpower it. Just to play it safe, I personally use the wall adapter that came with my Sega Genesis Mini. I personally would have preferred a USB-C connection, but I understand that Sega wants to use the same micro USB connection that came with a Sega Genesis Mini and the Game Gear Micro. The Astro City Mini also gives you the ability to use 2 USB controllers to be connected to play multiplayer games. While it's great to have, it's also a bit lame that Sega only included 2 USB outputs, considering some of the games on the device actually support up to 4 players, such as Golden Axe: The Revenge of Death Adder. This means that all these games on the Astro City Mini can only support a maximum of 2 players. That sucks. But that isn't the worst part. Sega has also locked down the USB ports on the controller and only accepts 2 officially Sega licensed controllers: the Sega Mega Drive Mini USB pads from Japan, or the Astro City branded controllers and arcade sticks that Sega recently released. That's it. Not even the Western released officially licensed retro bit controllers will work on the device. This is possibly the worst aspect of the Astro City Mini, and it really bummed me out, as I didn't pick up any of the controllers, thus I can't test out the USB controller features on the device, or at least not for this review. While I can see why a company like Sega, who is making Astro-themed controllers, would want new buyers to buy into these accessories, it also makes the unit unappealing for fans on a budget. That means as a new buyer, you're not just paying $140 for the unit, it could go up to $200 for the hardware if you get 2 Astro City Mini controllers. It also sucks for people like me that already have a USB arcade stick they enjoy to use. I hope Sega has a change of heart with them locking down USB controllers on the device and have some sort of update expanding the supported controllers. Or maybe, just maybe, hackers will unlock the ability for us. Wouldn't that be great? Inside the Astro City Mini unit, we have the main menu UI that has full English translation options, amongst other languages. The main UI is pretty simple and easy to read, even on the Astro Mini City's small screen. The device lists 37 of the built-in games, giving each title its own colored badge with a cute icon that represents the game's genre. Plus, when you highlight a game, you get more information on the title, including what Sega arcade board it was made for, release year, and even shows you the save data slot being used. Well, it's not a huge deal to me. Each title only allows you to have 2 save slots per game, which seems a bit restrictive. The Astro City Mini also allows you to put scan lines on games. It's an on and off feature without too much control. It works pretty well, but I prefer to play them without scan lines myself. The Astro City's biggest claim to fame is packing over 30 full-featured arcade titles in this tiny unit. Instead of focusing on Astro City's best lineup, Sega went back and made this unit more of a celebration of Sega's early arcade history by packing in early 80s Sega games like Flicky, Wonder Boy, and Ninja Princess that appeared on the Sega System 1 arcade board, and ending it with Sega's first 3D fighting game, Virtua Fighter, for the Sega Model 1 arcade board released in the early 90s. So the Astro City Mini really is a swan song for Sega's golden arcade years, all condensed into a single mini unit. These titles are all emulated, of course, and throughout my gameplay, I've had no issues with any glitches. I do know that Quartet 2 has a infamous game-breaking glitch due to the emulation where you can't get past level 15, which I personally probably would have never found out if it wasn't for Twitter. Of course, this is still an issue as Sega should have tested all these games from the beginning to the end, right? But maybe this is more about how hard Quartet 2 is more than anything else, right? Right, guys? One of my complaints though is that while the main system menu is translated in English, all the ROMs here are Japanese ROMs. I'll admit I had no issues playing most of the arcade games here, but it still sucks to play some of these games without understanding the story, even if they're a minor part of the game. Again, this is something we have to deal with when we import these sort of devices, so it should have been expected. While Sega does have some of their biggest arcade hits included on the unit, the company also went and included some arcade gems that never got official home releases, including the fabled Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder, which instantly sold me on the device. I tried playing this title on emulation in the past and have always had horrible frame drops, sound glitches, and random slowdowns, so playing this game on the Astro City Mini has been great. Sega also included a couple of arcade-only oddities, like the beat-em-up game Arabian Fight and the experimental sprite-scaling fighting game Dark Edge. I will say that Golden Axe Return of Death Adder is shoulders and above the best arcade exclusive included here. While I feel like Arabian Fight and Dark Edge are just fine experimental games that are nice to have as part of these collections. Sega also did an incredible job finding some of their least talked about arcade hits and including them on the Astro City Mini. I personally love the 80s action movie vibes that I get from both Crackdown and E-SWAT. I also felt that these two arcade titles got overshadowed by other games in their respective genres and never got the love they deserved. Talking about games that remind me of each other, Sega also included Alien Storm and Alien Syndrome for fans of out-of-this-world invasions. These 4 games mentioned should already convince you to buy the unit, but if that wasn't enough, the Astro City Mini also includes the rare inclusion of stat columns, which might not sound too amazing, but actually has a really cool atmosphere and the gameplay is a lot of fun. The stack feature, allowing you to stack gambling chips and unleash them as attacks, is pretty satisfying. Sega also showed a lot of love to the Wonder Boy franchise on this collection, by not just including the first Wonder Boy game, but also Wonder Boy in Monsterland and Wonder Boy 3 Monster Lair. These games are pretty unique titles in the arcade landscape, as they're designed to be more like console titles, but on arcades. Sega's Bonanza Bros and their related puzzle and action games have also made the short list. Like always, you can never have enough Bonanza Brothers, especially the original, which is a very unique sneaking game that puts Metal Gear Solid to shame. Another surprise title that makes the system's unique lineup is Cotton Fantastic Night Dreams, a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up that always gave me a Kiki's Delivery Service vibe when I was growing up. So it's nice to see this included, especially since Cotton isn't a Sega-owned IP. The Astro City Mini has such obscure games sprinkled in that even I found a few titles I never played. One of these surprise titles was Scrambled Spirits, a vertical scrolling shooter created for the System 24 arcade board. This game seems to have flown under the radar since I never hear a lot of Sega fans discuss the title, which is surprising because it's better than I expected. While the game isn't the best vertical shooter of all time, and is really just influenced by Capcom's 1943, it has some really impressive graphics for a game that came out in 1988 and definitely deserves a try. We could be here all day talking about the great games on this device. As you can tell, I haven't even talked about Sega's mainstream arcade hits included on the Astro City Mini, like Virtual Fighter, Shinobi, the original Golden Axe, the Puyo Puyo games, Fantasy Zone, Altered Beast, and of course the psychedelic shooter Space Harrier. In my opinion, a lot of the games on the device deserve to be here and have some sort of arcade history with Sega, but some other games are a little perplexing, like Alex Kidd and the Lost Stars. Alex Kidd has always been known as the mascot for the Sega Master System, so it's kind of weird having him in an arcade collection, especially since they left out a lot of Sega AM2's best games. Where's Outrun? Where's Afterburner? You know what I mean? I'd say that about 75% of the library are must-play games, while the other games are like My Hero, which are here for... well, they're here, so... nice. The Astro City Mini does a really good job condensing Sega's golden age of arcades into a miniature arcade unit that includes some impressive hardware. Well, it sucks that the LCD being used on the Astro City Mini is in 4x3. The screen they did use here is pretty colorful and nice to play on, even if it's too small for some of the games included. The joystick and buttons on the unit have a real, authentic arcade feel that make most of the games on here a joy to play. I also think Sega did a great job of picking not only games that never got home releases, but also picked great hidden gems along with some of their biggest arcade hits. Is the game selection going to make every single retro fan happy? No, but I find that most of the games on the device are interesting even if I'm not the biggest fan of them. It really sucks that the Astro City Mini only supports a maximum of 2 players, but what's even worse is that Sega locked down its USB controller support to only the Astro City branded controllers / arcade sticks, or the Japanese Mega Drive Mini pads. It would have been great if Sega had a larger range of USB controllers to use on the device, especially if you're charging $140. Adding 2 controllers to fully utilize all of the Astro City Mini's features will keep rising the price for newcomers. Overall, I really enjoy the device and I'm excited to see what happens in terms of modding or even future Sega updates. Would I recommend this device? If the screen being 16:9 and Sega restricting the controllers compatible with the device doesn't bother you, I'd say that the unit is totally worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of Sega's arcade titles. That's my review for the Astro City Mini. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you guys enjoyed this video, I have other videos over here on the side, and if you guys would do me the honor of subscribing, I would really appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time. Bye.